what's going on. Doing a little bit of reading here of Secret Teachings of All the Ages. Manly P. Hall, which is a great name, by the way. I wish my name was Manly. Maybe I wouldn't cry so much. But I got to the point of where it's talking about Bacchus. Bacchus, the Titan. Bacchus' rite centers around the allegory of youthful Bacchus being torn into pieces by the Titans. These giants accomplish the destruction of Bacchus by causing him to become fascinated by his own image in the mirror. After dismembering him, the Titans first boiled the pieces in water and afterward roasted them. Pallas, which is Athena, rescued the heart of the murdered god, and by this precaution Bacchus, it also says Dionysos, I don't know if it's Dionysus and Dionysos is the same, probably not, was enabled to spring forth again in all his former glory. Jupiter, the Demiurgus, beholding the crime of the Titans, hurled his thunderbolts and slew them, burning their bodies to ashes with heavenly fire. Out of the ashes of the Titans, which also contained a portion of the flesh of Bacchus, whose body they had partially devoured, the human race was created. Thus, the mundane life of every man was said to contain a portion of Bacchus' life. For this reason, the Greek mysteries warned against suicide. He who attempted to destroy himself raised his hand against the nature of Bacchus within him, since man's body is indirectly the tomb of this god, and consequently must be preserved with great care. Bacchus, we'll get to the point here, Bacchus represents the rational soul of the inferior world. He is the chief of the Titans, the artificer of mundane spheres. Pythagoreans called him the Titanic monad. Thus Bacchus is the all-inclusive idea of the Titanic sphere, and the Titans, or gods of the fragments, the active agencies by means of which universal substance is fashioned into the pattern of this idea. The Bacchic state signifies a unity of the rational soul in a state of self-knowledge. In the Titanic state, the diversity of the rational soul, which, being scattered through creation, loses the consciousness of its own essential oneness. The mirror into which Bacchus gazes, and which is the cause of his fall, is the great sea of illusion. The lower world fashioned by the Titans. I want to pause there for a minute. It is this idea that has been born in the mythology that I've been working on with the guys that I'm working on it with. And it falls perfectly in line with how the Titans came to be in a mythological sense, being the creators of Ywander, the creators of this planet, this lesser kind of world. Even though in their eyes it seems like it's a greater world, it's escaping the mundane kind of circles of the known universe. It's outside of it, and they're trying to bring it back into the fold. At least that's what Theis says he's doing. But it's rather interesting to see it in such a way. Not only that, but the part where I read the Titans, or gods of the fragments, I know that's a choice of words in that moment there, because after that he's going on. He says, the active agencies by means of which universal substance is fashioned into pattern of this idea. And the idea is the Titanic monad. Pardon me. He's the idea of the sphere. The rational soul in a state of self-knowledge. When I heard that, when I was reading this late, it was like fucking 11:30 at night, doing some late studying, it really brought whole the idea of, with the mythology, if you had all been paying attention to the Forgotten series we're working on, this Forgotten series, as another disclaimer, which I've said a million times, but I'll continue to say, is a stream of consciousness idea. We're just letting our mind do the thinking. We're letting, I know that sounds stupid, but in a sense of turn off and just go. And just type away, and the story will create itself. As long as your fingers can keep up. It's interesting how it always follows along great myths. Never in my life did I ever, until last night, did I ever think I'd see the words together, the Titans or the gods of the fragments. Never would I have thought that. But that's the beauty of mythology. The Greek myths, the Celtic myths, the Indian, the Chinese, you know, all of them. They're all echoing some sort of fucking truth. And even if you can't comprehend that very truth that it's saying, look, I'm right here. Even if you're like, what is that though? Some part of you knows it and eventually will stumble upon it and find it when you create your own myth. Your own myth being the life in which you're interpreting what happened in your past and all the synchronicities, and you're finally coming to the point of realizing higher self. You're obtaining a higher version of yourself, the Buddha state or the fucking Christ state, or what other versions of a higher being that are obtainable in different cultures, you know? You're already doing that, and they've planted their seeds, even if you don't even remember where they were planted or how they were or what they were even saying. You'll read something in here about, especially in this, because this is laying out esoteric stuff right in front of you, and you're reading, you're like, I don't understand what the fuck he's talking about. Hog and man and bat? What are you talking about? Somehow, it'll go in here, and there it will stay. Until eventually it kind of, in the right moment, at the right time, it's spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning, and they line up through your eyes after you read something else over here, has nothing seemingly to do with it, and that will remind you of something that you're working on your own, which will line up, and here you'll say, the Titans are manifestations of the archetypes in the mind, fragmented beings, lesser gods, primordial gods, in the more human animal state, which must be vanquished in a sense, or brought to surface, into the higher sense, what I would call my aeons. That's it. That's the whole trick. That's what the fucking serpent going up and down the spine is. That's what the fucking chakras are. And it starts to all click like that, and you realize that you're participating in the grand mythology. That's basically what I've been doing of late here. I'm starting to, you know, I've been working on this mythology for a long time, and only of late am I really starting to dive into stuff on a deeper level. And the deeper I go, the more I say, holy fuck, we've already been doing this. This is already happening. Remember, if you were here a long time ago, there was a point where I'm like, you know, I was sitting here and I discovered the Celtic otherworlds, and I had already been working on this idea of this other world that's in conjunction with that. It's this kind of mysterious place, this kind of sinister. There is something similar about it, and I felt this kinship. It's like, holy fuck, I thought I made some of these things up. Or some of the names, like Aeon, hand to God. I thought I made that name up. I was sitting there one day and I liked A and E together because my name begins with an A, it ends with an E. So I was like, oh, why don't we just make names like that, just A, E, something, you know, or at least put an A and E in there because they look great together, A and E. That was it. And I thought Aeon, you know, because they're on. I didn't know that that was a real thing. That was a real, I think it's from Gnosticism. And they are almost the same being. That's when I just thought, synchronicities, man. And it's teaching you things, the things you're doing. Now, could it have been in my life at some point the word Aeon hit me? Sure, I guess. I don't know how it would have, because I didn't even know what Gnosticism was until a few years ago. But there's a possibility that it did, you know. I'm not going to be like sitting here saying I'm omnipotent or whatever, but I don't have any recollection of what it could have been. Or I did. I don't know. Seems like he's pretty pissed. It's really hard to say because it's when you're involved in this stuff. It's like you're in this office, right? You're in here with me, and someone keeps coming in here and just setting books on this desk. You come in, you're like, here, this will be good for you. This guy comes, he's like, here, check this one. I'm gonna put it right there. And they're piling up around me, and I'm working on my thing. I'm sitting here like the Forgotten King, just kind of like trying to solve the problems of my story. How do I free myself from the trapments, the Forgotten Kings, you know? And that's who I am. And every once in a while I look at the thing and I'm like, huh. Anamundi. Interesting. What does that mean? Oh, it's the time of it's a reckoning of time of Earth. Pyramids and stuff. Interesting. And I go back to it. That I accidentally infiltrated my mind. You know? Or you hand me the Odyssey. You hand me Ovid. You hand me Canterbury Tales. Josephus, you know, and a bunch of different things. And I'll thumb through a little bit and say, that's very, harpies. That's the only thing I stumbled on. That was weird. You know, the sirens, and he had to put the wax in his men's ears, and he was tied to the vessel. I don't know. And then I just walk away from it, but that will still influence. A lot of the times in our modern era, we get really hung up on like, well, everything's already been done. There's no point in doing it. And I think we're missing the fucking point on that. I think the idea really is there's something old happening. The more I think about it, the more I'm convinced, you know, these very early Indo-Europeans, these Aryans, something happened in them. The people that we descend from. Of Europe and India and a bit of China, so they say. I think they all had some sort of sacred knowledge, you could say, and they passed it along, and that became Taoism and Confucianism, and that became Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, and I'm probably missing a few here and there, like Zoroastrianism. I'm sure that was fucking all them, and then we just all took it and walked away with it. To know that those are my ancestors from fuck ton time ago gives me some hope that there's got to be something you can unlock in your mind, like trying to reactivate an organ that doesn't necessarily serve a purpose anymore. At least we think it doesn't, right? That's the whole point of it. Maybe there's some sort of knowledge in the head. This is kind of what my journey is at least kind of teaching me in a sense. And maybe if we unlock it, it can help make this all clearer. Because every once in a while, someone comes along that's, you could say like a sage. And probably mainly be Hall was one of them. Who, they just got it. They had the right circumstances of their life. They had the right amount of free time and the right amount of curiosity to stumble upon in the right way because of the life they lived. I find myself sitting in this office here, surrounded by books, surrounded by iconography of my mythology, maps and flags and drawings and shit like that. And it's all keeping me in this like state. This office to me is this divine place, but it's allowing me to stay in this state and to find the holy truth, not only inside my work and what I'm trying to do in the Forgotten series, but also divine works that are surrounding me. Do you know what I'm saying? When I finished Parsifal and I finished Tristan, I'm just in Arthurian mythology. But when I start venturing around, it's very interesting the kind of things that just start clicking. You're like, holy shit. There's something in all of these, and I am too stupid to find it right now. I knew there's something in there, but I'm too ignorant to see it for myself. And that's what I'm trying to work on. When I read certain passages of this and I say, there's something there, man. There's something inside this. Manly P. Hall is saying something. And I think I got it, but I don't have enough confidence to say out loud what I think it is. I'm too nervous. The tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil mentioned in Genesis is the burning bush, which the angel appears to Moses, the famous vine and fig tree of the New Testament, the grove of olives in the garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus went to pray, and the miraculous tree of Revelation, which bore 12 manners of fruit, and whose leaves were for healing of the nations. All bear witness to the esteem in which trees were held by the scribes of Holy Writ. Buddha received his illumination while under the Bodhi tree near Madras in India. And it continues to go on. When I'm sitting there in my mythology going like, the tree of life, that is something, that is something. Is the something more Jesus related and New Testament, Old Testament, like we were just reading there? More Buddhist related? Is it like the Jewish tree of life, you know? Sephorath, or whatever the fuck they call it. I have no fucking idea. Sephiroth, sorry. Tree of Sephiroth. Whatever. I don't know. But I do know it is somehow, they're all echoing something, and whatever they're all kind of talking about, I'm trying to surface and bring it to this time so I can understand it. The main reason of the mythology is in order to understand what was in the past and what they were trying to teach us. I'm just trying to bring it to now and lay it down on the table and put it where I think it goes. Give it a new skin, you could call it. And just understand it. That's it. That's the whole idea. I mean, the mythology that we've been working on here has taken so many stages. It's taking so many lives of its own and incarnations, and it's grown and it's shrank and humbly starting on accident in a sense, and now on purpose all the time I'm sitting in here working on it. I'm adding life to it every day. I'm strengthening it. I'm giving it more detail. The thing is, in my mind, it's so monumentous, like you only know a tiny little fragment of it. You know, the Forgotten series, for instance, and the kind of accompanying Forgotten King series, and I think that's the only ones that are a part of it. That's just a little sliver. That's a tiny little fucking sliver of an idea. It's much more grand than that. The stories to come further, the stories that will eventually lead to the series of books that I'm writing, which are chronicled in the writing series, the writing of book 2, which takes place thousands of years after the Forgotten series. It's a lot. It's a lot, but at the end of the day, I'm trying my best to put everything in there that has any sort of mythological, esoteric, religious, or philosophical merit. Anything that means anything, I'm stuffing in there. Or I'm using the mythology as the focal point to which I look through the microscope. You know what I'm saying? The microscope being ancient beliefs of the Greeks, Pythagorean, or whatever, you know? And I'm using my mythology as the viewing point of looking and just like, okay, what does that mean to my mythology? Kind of idea. Jewish mysticism. If I want to discover Jewish mysticism, then I'm going to use my mythology as the viewing glass to look into it. So when I'm doing that, it's interpreting it like my eyes in a way that I understand it. I'm not an ancient Jew or a Greek or an Egyptian or whoever's we're talking about. I'm not them. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But I do know what I'm talking about. So if I view it in the way that I know it, which is my mythology, which is basically just my understanding, which is the mind of me, then that might be a better way to obtain this knowledge. Do you know what I mean? Not only does that play a part in the actual mythology when you discover that the mind of the creator is the author, and all of the things inside the story are just manifestations of himself, acted out to create a story of the mind of a personal being and the inner depths that are so vast, you begin to see you are capable of a universe yourself. You're more than capable of an entire universe in your mind. I remember when I was told at work recently that, yeah, there were somehow on the telescope looking out into space, in some way, shape, or form, they think they might have discovered that there could be a universe inside a black hole. Another one, right? My first thought was, yeah, well, no shit, why the fuck wouldn't there have been? But whatever. My second thought was, if one exists in me, how do I have any right to be like, yeah, and out in the universe, that's it? But there is no way. There is no way. This is all way too connected. The example I gave him was, I was walking in the forest one day, and I happened upon a big tree. And I looked up at it and I thought, what a very huge, powerful tree. And I looked down, and this was around the fall time, and there were, I'm going to say, hundreds of acorns. Hundreds of them. I didn't count them, but a lot. Squirrels got a lot of them. Some of them, I don't know, they just didn't seem to make it. They were eaten up. My mind knew, well, not all of those are going to create a tree. That would be ridiculous. Hundreds of trees growing out of one little point, there's no way. It's the right one taken to the right place at the right time. Maybe it fell and rolled and found a perfect spot. Maybe it was eaten and then it was shit out by an animal in another spot. It's the perfect conditions for that one tree to create another. Not just every single, of my seeds that fell will create another tree. No, they won't. Not always. And then I look at Earth. And I heard someone say something interesting. I think it was Alan Watts. He's like, Earth is a being, is a plant, if you want to think of it like that creates people. It grows people. We've grown from this planet. And then I thought, well, the universe is a vast place. That's why it seems like there's only just us for a while, because sometimes all the seeds fell, let's pretend, in our solar system for some reason. They're not all going to hit. It's going to be one that's going to hit. You think of sperm, same thing. It's just one. Not all of them. And you create multiple fucking children. That's not how that works. It's all the fucking same. From our biological level of creating children, to the planet creating us, to the universe creating places for beings to flourish. And it makes sense that this universe is just one fractal part of another one, which is another one, which is another one. Like, why the hell wouldn't it be? It seems to make way too much sense, at least thus far in my journey. I might find a way to make it not make sense, but not yet. And so when I looked up at the universe, what I could see of it, I don't feel small, because I'm like, man, there's got to be a couple, at least in my head, that I can identify right now. I can identify at least a couple whole ass universes. Who the fuck says that that's small? It's all the same damn thing from top to bottom. From my little atoms and neutrons and all that shit, all the way up through me, all the way up through the world, the universe, and beyond. It's the same damn thing. I call it the circles. It just keeps spiraling up and spiraling down infinity, in a sense. Well, that's what the mythology is doing, at least my mythology, is to create the idea, to allow my mind to say, it's just part of it. It isn't this significant event that never has happened before. It's probably happened millions of times before, just on levels we could never comprehend. And so anytime I'm looking at mythology or esoteric stuff or philosophy, I keep that in mind. And keeping in that, in my head, and I stumble upon words that are echoed of words that I wrote, I'm like, there you go. There's your fucking proof. It's right there. The man wrote that 100-something years before you fucking thought of it. And here you thought of it. It's all happening, man. Just keep going. As that happened, I look up at the book by Ovid called The Metamorphosis. At the top of the book, there's 4 letters, or there's 4 numbers. It says M-E, me, 2622. And I was like, well, I'm 622. My wife is 26-2. And it's just like, it was a small moment. I connected that with the words I was writing. That echoed a dream that I had, this very crazy dream that I've been postulating and thinking, how can I put this dream in the mythology? And it fucking dawned on me, and I wrote it down, and the journey begins when the true realization is to find self, our real self. One that is more personal than divine. The idea, though, I imagine that divine self could be traced in such a cathartic search. For we're beginning to uncover the ancient artifacts hidden in the ground, meaning there is truth to our search, but it will take much more to unearth our truth in our inner being. Right now, our inner child seeks to open the way so that we may meet again. Then we can truly begin to ascend. The inner child, the one bringing me, I had in this dream, to the astral realm. This crossroads place, the void, the universe. It's a crossroads that leads to many different areas. They discovered inside a black hole that there may be another universe. No shit! It's a fucking crossroads, you know? I would imagine that would be that way. And who's guiding me, just like in my dream, is the inner child who's learned this and is transcended to the astral realm. The one that died. I was stumbling upon one of my journals and I read a point where I was very isolated. And I lost a lot. And I was back at home living in my parents' living room. And I went outside in the cold. And it might be hard to talk about a little bit, but it's okay. I'm here, all right? So reading in the yellow journal, I discovered something. And that something is this. The creation of Harius, which is the mythology I'm working on, was made in and around 2015. The man cast out for the 2nd time, because I lost my girlfriend again. The man lost so deeply in his own sorrow, wandering alone and in such deep unrequited pain, wondering at his own being, his own feelings, and doubting his very will to live. Here was the passage we found. I wrote this in my journal around that time, because I used to go for walks outside. It says, he was depressed and left to kill himself. When he journeyed out in that snowy night, he discovered 2 peculiar characters. The character says, should we let him in? One whispered to the other. I just found that. And I remembered, oh yeah, I would go for walks outside in the cold weather and stuff, just hoping, you know. And then it dawns on me, because I had this dream where I was in the snowy landscape up in these mountains by myself, coming back from some sort of journey. I don't know what I was doing, but I was coming back from it. As I was coming up the side of the mountains here, I look over to my left, which is just a sheer drop into, you know, ground. I don't know how high it was, but it was very foggy and the snow was blinding. So, but I knew if I went that way, I'd roll down the side of the fucking mountains. But I walked and I saw this pole in front of me, and on the pole was this wire of some description that went all the way out to the abyss. Maybe it was a zip line for supplies or something that I had done in the dream. I don't know. But I knew something dead was on the other side of that. And I'm like, I don't want to. And it was young. Like I buried my child over there. And I just was I didn't want to look at it. I needed to go back to my cabin up in these mountains. And I went inside the cabin and I was prostrate with myself. But what saved me was the child that died. Later on in that dream, I came to these realizations that are going to like line up perfectly with the story that I'm about to tell you with Harius in the next episode of the Forgotten series. I'm going to tell you the entire dream in its entirety, So it'll make more sense. This is just accompany it. When the child died, in the astral realm, he was born. And ever since then, he's been trying to guide me from the astral realm, the void, the outside place, to unite with me again. And while I'm looking to heal him lost in that place, he's looking to heal me lost in this place. The adult side of myself, another fractal level to explore and explain and to find reason for and to heal. I mean, we talk about the human higher state of consciousness, this golden consciousness that we must obtain, this Christ consciousness or Buddha consciousness, and below that is the animalistic consciousness. You think of your chakras and shit. Yeah, there's that too, but there's also this child and adult interplay that you have to unite once again. When I went out in the snow in that time of my life in 2015, going for these walks in the cold weather and hoping to God maybe I would just die along the way, that was when my child died, my inner child. And I finally lost that innocence. Because up to that point, I've been so foolishly just running along to help people and getting burned. And it was finally at that time I realized, holy fuck, I'm not a kid anymore. And it died. It was so symbolic. I never saw that till last night. Never saw that. Never even thought of that. Then I think of that damn dream up in the mountains and seeing that zip line, knowing that on the other end of it was some sort of surface, maybe another mountain peak or something, and there was a dead child there. I knew that, but I was like, I don't want to see that right now. I don't want to deal with that today. But later on in the dream, that child says, I know I left you the physical world, but I've been guiding you this whole time. I'm within you, trying to help you. And I knew my consciousness is the consciousness of a child. That is mythological work. Because I remember hearing Joseph Campbell say, mythologies come from the same realm, you want to call it, as dreams. And it makes perfect fucking sense. All of the mythologies, even Arthurian or Sumerian, Mesopotamian, Egyptian, Greek, Celtic, Indian, they all come from the same place, like that. And they're such a journey that we found completion into it. Sometimes I wonder if the Christ, the Buddha, or Socrates, or whoever we're talking about, the highest of the high person that's obtained this enlightenment that we must also, is just someone that finally listened to it and figured it out, and now they become an ascended being. So I said to myself, what if you're capable of being one? If you try hard enough, if you listen to yourself enough, you learn from the mythologies that what they're trying to teach, you create your own, and you work on your inner self as hard as you can. What if you can do the same damn thing and find that escape across this sea on the ferry to the next place? What if it's entirely possible? And with that I said, hell yes. And I've been on this journey, of course, as you can clearly see, ever since then. But that was just kind of something that came to me last night when I connected this part of my life that I was so depressed and it was so bad for me. But not, and looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened. But at the time, it was like the hardest thing that I've been through. It was the death of my child, my childhood nature, not my actual child. That happened years later. But it was a moment of realization. And so that's kind of why when I clicked all this together, I wouldn't have thought of that if I wasn't doing all this exploration. If I wasn't working all the time at these journals of just my own thoughts, if I wasn't always writing my own thoughts down or exploring mythologies or myths of any, whatever I seem to stumble upon, it wouldn't have come to me. And if that realization didn't come to me, where would I be? What would I be? I don't even want to think what I would be if I wasn't doing all this. But it's one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. It's been a life of sorrow and difficulty and seemingly of hell. It's just been fucking horrible. And sometimes every day gets worse than the previous day. Sometimes I just don't have the will to want to get out of bed. 9 times out of 10, mostly. It's never really I've ever gotten up and was like, yeah, for the day, you know? Like, no. It's always fucking horrible. And I'm tired and my whole body aches. Every day it aches more and more and more. It's harder and harder to stand up from in a crouch position, knowing it's going to get worse. Every day I'm feeling shittier, more tired, weary, wanting to give up. Realizing that the trauma that I've experienced is going to take a long time to undo. Sometimes looking at all the books that I need to read, going, fucking hell. When I work on the Forgotten series, when I'm sitting in front of that typewriter, you just go back to the last Forgotten episode. When I'm sitting there trying to think of that fucking shit, I'm like, this is so daunting. This is so daunting. I don't know how I'm going to do this. How the fuck is this going to happen? How do I make another episode? How do I keep getting up to go to work again? To look forward to my weekend? How do I finish this book? I have no will to want to finish it. How do I go out and see people? I have no will to want to go out and see people. Like, every goddamn day it's this fucking struggle. But I do the same damn thing every time. I just push through it. I ignore it. Or I try to teach my way to stop thinking like that. And every time I reward myself because look how much positive came from doing whatever it was. It takes a long time. For me, I'm a very stubborn person, clearly. I want to give up all the time. Like every day, I just want to give the fuck up and say, done. I want to surrender. I want to come out of the bunker, you know, World War II, see the Germans walking out, hands up on the films. That's what I want to do. I just want to give up. Just walk out and be done with the game. Put me in a prison, in the purgatory, and let me just sit there. That's all I want. I want to give up. But obviously, I don't. Obviously, I keep fighting. I keep participating. I keep learning, growing. I keep trying to understand the deeper parts of myself. I keep trying to re-explore my childhood. I keep trying to read these texts that just confuse me. I keep trying to unravel what it is that they're trying to say, or trying to understand other people. Or I keep trying to be the best person I can be. I try to be kind to strangers. I try not to be so angry all the time. I try not to let the world get to me. Sometimes I try to walk away from the world. It's every day of trying to do it. Eventually you start realizing the trying is the doing. When you look back and you say, you haven't given up one time, yeah. In a few years. Doesn't sound like trying to me, it sounds like doing. And then you start to, holy shit, and now you're training yourself to like, oh my God, I am doing it. I'm not listening to my baser animalistic instincts of just wanting to lay in the sun and just surrender. I'm not listening to the fear in me saying, I'm too afraid to discover what I'm going to discover. That's not easy, you know? But the fact is, knowing that I have been doing it, and also knowing that it's not easy, tells me, there you go. There's a positive thing to think about. You've been doing something that's really hard. You know how many times I'll do these videos like this, or I'll talk about the stuff I'm working on, and people are like, I don't know how you do that. And I say, I don't either. That always gives me a little bit of encouragement, like, holy shit, because you get caught in it. You get in your little sphere here, and you're like, oh, this isn't hard. Well, it is, but it seems like it must be done. You have to kind of shut the fuck up with your little fucking attitude about how hard it is. And then you look out and you realize most people aren't doing any of this. You're like, oh, Holy shit, okay. That's why it's so hard, you know? But when you unravel myth and you realize that is the point of mythology, or at least the ones that have happened, the dream states that have been realized, all of a sudden you realize maybe yours will be too. And maybe you'll find ascension, and you'll move into the next realm, whatever the hell that may be. And maybe you'll be ready. Or maybe you'll come back here again to have to do it all over. I don't know yet. I haven't gotten there. Anyway, it's probably time to go. We've been at it for a while. Hopefully today I begin the next episode of The Forgotten on the typewriter. But we'll see.